They say life has a strange sense of humor. Cruel, quiet, and precise. Mine came in the form of a woman in a navy suit who didn't even bother to look up when she told me, "You're not the right fit." I remember the room perfectly. Glass walls, cold air, and the faint smell of perfume that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her nameplate read Madison Clark, CEO, Silvertech Innovations. That morning, I'd ironed my only decent shirt twice, shaved even though I couldn't afford new blades, and left my daughter's school lunch money on the counter before catching the 6:40 bus downtown. It wasn't just another interview. It was a chance, maybe my last one, to build something stable after 2 years of rebuilding everything I'd lost. "Tell me about yourself," she said, eyes on her tablet. I talked, maybe too much, about landscape design, about rebuilding small community spaces after hurricanes, about how I liked seeing things grow. She nodded once, never meeting my eyes. When it ended, she said, "We'll be in touch." But she never was. 3 days later, the rejection email came. Polite, cold, and identical to the one I'd gotten from 5 other companies that month. "We've decided to move forward with other candidates." No explanation. No feedback. Just silence. That night, my daughter, Ellie, asked if I'd gotten the job. I told her maybe, that they were still deciding. She smiled, believing me like kids do, and went back to drawing at the kitchen table. I stared at her small hands, the purple marker stains on her fingers, and told myself I couldn't give up. 3 months passed. Winter came early. My truck died again on the way back from a landscaping job, and I had to push it half a mile with my gloves frozen stiff. Money was tight. Rent late. Christmas looked smaller this year, like everything else lately. Then, on a Friday night, while Ellie slept in her room, I got a call from the local blood donation center. "Mr. Hayes, your O-negative sample is still active in our emergency donor registry. Would you be available if we needed a live transfusion match?" I said yes, without thinking. I'd done a few small donations before. It paid $50, and they always told me O-negative was rare. They called again 2 weeks later. This time, the woman's voice sounded urgent. "Mr. Hayes, we have a trauma patient in critical condition. She needs your type immediately. Can you come to St. Joseph's?" I grabbed my coat and went. No questions. Hospitals always smell the same: bleach, metal, and something like fear. The nurse met me at the desk, handed me a clipboard, and said, "You're saving a life tonight." I smiled politely. I wasn't thinking about who it was, just doing what seemed right. An hour later, I was hooked to a line, watching the blood flow out of my arm and into a plastic bag that would soon go to someone fighting for theirs. I didn't know her name then. I didn't know that while my daughter slept in her room with fairy lights glowing above her bed, my blood was flowing into the veins of a woman who once told me I wasn't the right fit. It was 3 days later when I found out. I was back at work, pruning trees near the downtown promenade, when I saw her face on the news. "Local CEO survives crash outside city center," the headline said. Her car had flipped off an icy bridge, crushed against a guardrail. Doctors said she survived thanks to an emergency blood transfusion from a rare match. Her picture filled the screen. Madison Clark. Same woman. Same cold eyes. Only now, she looked small, pale, hooked to tubes, surrounded by people paid to care. I turned off the radio and kept working. That evening, I got a call from the hospital's coordinator. "Mr. Hayes, the patient you donated for asked to meet her donor once she's released. You're under no obligation, of course." I said I'd think about it. Truth was, I didn't know how I felt. Part of me wanted to stay invisible, let her live without ever knowing whose blood ran through her veins. But another part of me, the tired, quiet part that still believed in lessons, wanted to see her face when she realized who it was. A week later, I got the message. She was awake, stable, wanted to say thank you. I almost didn't go. Ellie had a school play that night, her first time on stage. But she caught me looking at the message on my phone. "Who's that?" she asked. "Just someone who needs to say thanks," I said. "You should go," she replied, without hesitation. "You always tell me we help people when we can." She said it so simply that I had no argument left. The hospital room was bright and sterile, filled with the slow rhythm of machines. Madison sat up in bed, her arm bandaged and 4 in her hand. She looked nothing like the woman from that glass office. No power suit, no perfume, no polished confidence. Just a human being caught in the gravity of her own mistakes. When she saw me in the doorway, she froze. Julian. Her voice was soft, cracked at the edges. I nodded once. Yeah, looks like we finally met again. Just not the way you expected. For a moment, the room was completely silent except for the beeping of her heart monitor. Then she said, barely above a whisper, You saved my life. I shrugged. I just did what anyone would have done. But we both knew that wasn't true. Her eyes filled, not with tears exactly, but with something heavier. Shame. Recognition. I could see her mind replaying that interview. Her tone, her words, my hands folded on the table. I remember, she said finally. You came in for the operations role. I barely looked at you. Yeah, I said quietly. That was me. She swallowed hard. I was wrong about you. I nodded once and looked toward the window. The city lights shimmered in the glass, the same lights I'd walked past every night for years, unseen. Sometimes, I said, life doesn't give interviews. It just tests character. She looked smaller than I remembered, the kind of small that doesn't come from size, but from a life suddenly humbled. Madison's. I don't know what to say, she murmured. Thank you. I leaned against the window ledge, hands in my jacket pockets. You don't have to. But she shook her head. No, I do. I've built my whole life on decisions, calculated, strategic, and then a stranger saves me, and I realize. Her voice faltered. When they told me you. I didn't answer. There wasn't. She stared at her hands, the hospital wristband catching the light. That day at the interview, I thought I was protecting the company. You were overqualified, and I told myself that meant you'd get bored. But that was a lie. The truth is, you reminded me too much of who I used to be before I learned to stop feeling. I looked at her then, really looked. Beneath the exhaustion and the guilt, I saw something human again, someone trying to find her way back. You don't owe me anything, I said quietly. What's done is done. She met my eyes, almost desperate. Then at least let me help you now. A position, a contract, something. You deserve more than cutting lawns and fixing irrigation pumps. That made me smile, just a little. You think that's all I do? I read your resume again, she said quickly. You built that Veterans Park outside Raleigh, didn't you? I drove by it once. It's beautiful. Her voice softened. You build things that last. I turned toward the window again. Outside, the city lights reflected against the snow, silent and indifferent. I build things for my daughter, I said. Everything else is just detail. For a long moment, there was only the sound of the monitor beeping, slow and steady like a metronome for the truth sitting between us. Finally, Madison said, Do you have a picture of her? I hesitated, then took out my phone. Ellie's gap-toothed grin filled the screen, holding up a cardboard castle she'd made for a school project. She's 9, I said. Smart. Braver than she should be. Madison smiled faintly. She looks like you. She looks like the world didn't break her yet, I said, more to myself than to her. That made Madison flinch, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. She wanted to talk more, but visiting hours were ending. A nurse entered, polite but firm. Madison looked at me, her voice barely above a whisper. Will you come back? Just once more. I want to. She stopped herself. I need to talk to you again. I nodded, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe because I saw something honest in her now. Maybe because Ellie's words still echoed in my head. We help people when we can. 2 days later, I went back. She was sitting up this time, laptop on her tray, glasses sliding down her nose. The glow of the screen made her look younger, almost ordinary. You still working? I asked. She smiled weakly. I don't know how to stop. I shrugged. That's one problem I've never had. She laughed softly, an honest, tired laugh. And for a second, the room felt lighter. Then she closed the laptop. Julian, I've been thinking a lot about second chances. That makes 2 of us, I said. No, I mean, she hesitated. When they brought me in after the crash, I remember hearing a voice. The doctor said I had less than a minute before losing consciousness, and I remember thinking how ironic it was. Me, the woman who rejected you for not being ambitious enough, about to die before doing anything that actually mattered. She looked up at me then, her eyes clearer than before. Your blood gave me more time, and I want to do something that deserves it. I stayed quiet. Sometimes silence says more than sympathy ever could. Madison reached for a folder beside her bed and slid it toward me. Silver Tech has an urban renewal division. We fund small community projects, parks, memorials, housing gardens. It's been dying for years because we never had anyone to lead it. I want you to run it. I stared at the folder. You're serious? Yes, completely. It's contract-based, your design, your schedule. I just want to see something good come out of what happened. I didn't open it. Instead, I said, you're trying to fix your conscience. She didn't deny it. Maybe I am. But sometimes guilt builds better things than pride ever did. That line hit harder than I wanted to admit. I took the folder home, didn't open it for 2 days. Ellie kept asking why I was staring out the window so much. Finally, I told her the story, simplified, without the details. She's the lady from that job you wanted? Ellie asked. Yeah. And she's the one whose life you saved? I nodded. Ellie thought for a long time, then said, you should help her, Dad. Not because she deserves it, but because you do. Out of all the advice I'd ever heard, that one stuck. A week later, I walked back into Silver Tech for the first time since that interview. Same glass walls, same cold air. Only this time, Madison stood in the lobby waiting for me. Back where it all started, she said softly. Feels different, I replied. Because it is. She extended her hand. I shook it, firm but not forgiving, just final. I'm not here to prove anything, I said. If I take this project, it'll be for the city, not for you. She nodded. That's exactly why I wanted you. Before I left her office, she said one more thing. I read something last night, she began. That every drop of donated blood has the potential to save 3 lives. I smiled faintly. Guess that makes you one of the lucky 3. She smiled back, but her eyes said something else. Gratitude. Regret. Maybe both. That night, as I watched Ellie sleeping under her string lights, I thought about what Madison had said. About second chances. About guilt and pride. Maybe she was right. Maybe every drop of blood carries more than oxygen. It carries the chance to be better than you were the day before. And maybe sometimes, the people who once turned their backs on you aren't meant to destroy you. Maybe they're just there to remind you of who you were before the world told you to stop feeling. The first day on the new project site, the ground was frozen stiff. A stretch of abandoned land between 2 apartment blocks, littered with old tires, beer bottles, and the ghosts of what people stopped caring about. I stood there with my hands in my pockets, breathing out white clouds of cold, thinking, so this is where redemption starts. Madison's company had agreed to fund a small public park here. Benches, a playground, and a green space where kids could breathe air that didn't taste like exhaust. But to me, it wasn't just dirt and budgets. It was proof that something good could come out of a bad decision, hers and maybe mine. Ellie was there, wrapped in her puffy purple coat. She kicked a pebble and said, "It doesn't look like a park." I smiled. "Not yet, but you'll see." "Will she come?" she asked, not needing to say who she was. "She might," I said. "People like her usually show up for ribbon cuttings." Ellie thought for a moment. "You don't sound mad anymore." I looked at the horizon, the orange glow of morning creeping through gray clouds. I was never mad, just tired of how people forget that kindness still matters. She nodded, like she understood more than I expected. Over the next few months, the project became my life. Weekends, nights, everything went into turning that broken patch of land into something alive. I called in favors from old friends, veterans, carpenters, a retired gardener who still believed in miracles. Word spread. Volunteers started showing up, college kids, mothers, even a few men who looked like they'd lost more than they'd ever admit. We cleared trash, planted trees, built benches from reclaimed wood. Every day, the place started to breathe again. And then, one afternoon, Madison showed up. She wasn't in designer heels this time, just jeans, a gray coat, and a quiet look that didn't belong to the woman I met in that glass office. "You did all this?" she asked softly, looking around. "We did," I said. "People like helping when they see something worth saving." Her eyes landed on a wooden sign near the fence. It read, "Ellie's Grove, where good things grow back." She smiled, but her voice cracked. "You named it after her." I nodded. "She's the reason I still believe in second chances." We walked the path together, the crunch of gravel under our boots. "I've been to every board meeting since I left the hospital," she said. "And every time I talk about this project, they roll their eyes. They don't understand why a CEO cares about a park. Because they've never needed one," I said. She laughed quietly, the sound of someone who hasn't done it in too long. "You're probably right." We stopped near the benches. She looked at me. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." I shook my head. You don't owe me anything. Just don't forget what this feels like, being human. She blinked fast, hiding emotion behind professionalism, but I saw it anyway. The guilt, the gratitude, the quiet need to mean something again. Weeks turned into spring. The park opened officially in May. The mayor gave a short speech about community revitalization. People clapped politely, and Madison stood beside me, hands clasped, calm but distant. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't use the notes they'd given me. I don't have much to say, I began. This place used to be forgotten. Broken things usually are. But sometimes, when people decide to care again, even just one person, things grow back. I paused, catching Ellie's face in the crowd. This park isn't about money or titles. It's about remembering that we're all connected, even when we don't realize it. Sometimes, the same blood that saves one life helps another keep living right. The crowd went quiet. Madison's eyes glistened. After the ceremony, she found me near the fence. You were right, she said. I did forget. For years, I built things that looked impressive but didn't mean a damn thing. She looked around the park, the kids playing, the old man sitting on a bench with a smile he probably hadn't worn in years. This means something. Then it was worth it, I said. She reached into her bag and handed me an envelope. What's this? Official offer, she said. Director of Community Development. Full-time. Build more places like this. I opened it, saw the number, and whistled softly. That's a lot of zeros. She smiled. Consider it overdue. I folded the envelope, slipped it back into her hand. I'm flattered, I said, but I've got enough right here. She looked confused. You're turning it down? Yeah. Ellie's got her school. We've got this park. That's enough. She shook her head in disbelief. You could have everything, Julian. I smiled. I already do. Later, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Ellie ran up holding a flower. For you, she said, handing it to me. Mom says flowers make people happy. I took it gently. She's right. Madison stood a few feet away, watching us, her expression unreadable. Pride, sorrow, maybe both. She walked over and knelt beside Ellie. You have a good dad, she said softly. Ellie grinned. I know. When the crowd left and the park fell silent, Madison lingered by the entrance. You really don't want the job? She asked one last time. I shook my head. No, but I'll help you find someone who cares as much as I do. She nodded slowly, then said, I hope one day I'll deserve the chance you gave me. You already got it, I said. You're still here. A week later, she sent a small box to my address. Inside was a polished metal plaque. It read, in honor of Julian Hayes, the man who gave us back more than blood. I smiled when I read it, not because of pride, but because for once, someone finally saw the man beneath the title. That night, sitting on the park bench as Ellie fell asleep on my shoulder, I thought about everything. Rejection, blood, fate, second chances. And I realized something simple. The world doesn't always repay kindness. Sometimes it just gives you one quiet evening under soft light, your child breathing peacefully beside you, and the knowledge that you stayed decent in a world that forgot how. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Would you have done what I did? Tell me in the comments below. Life has a way of humbling the proud and softening the hardened, but only if we let it. I used to TH, but now I S. Madison learned that success means nothing if you forget how to be human. And IL, that park we built, it's still there. Kids laugh, old folks sit, and sometimes, when the light hits the benches just right, I think maybe life found a way to balance the scales. So if you've ever been overlooked, rejected, or made to feel invisible, remember this. You never know whose life your kindness might save. And sometimes, the people who once looked down on you will have to look up to say thank you. Would you have done what I did? Tell me in the comments. And if this story made you think, subscribe. There's more to come every week.